got him, and that's the ball game. So the Giants, after the loss last night, said we need to take 2 out of 3, and that's what they do today behind Logan Webb.
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
I know. I'm a homer, and I'm always optimistic. I wonder if we could get past that for a second and actually...
You have to be a homer?
I do. Can we just listen to each other for a sec?
I'm trying.
Well, tell me
but all I hear is, the Giants are going to win it all.
No.
Farhan needs a 30-year extension.
Tell me where I'm wrong. I didn't say anything about Farhan.
No, I'm just kidding.
Although
I'm kidding about all of it. You just threw about 17 ifs at me.
Right. And I acknowledge that most of them some of them won't happen.
Right.
But I guarantee you some of them will.
And I'll let you pay off the tees in a minute. Sure. Of course, I don't have to let you do anything, but you were guaranteeing that they're going to make a big move.
Mr. Dibley, if I may.
Just a moment.
Yeah.
Mick. Is it Mick or Mark? Mark with a K. I prefer Mark with a C.
I go by, you in the back.
Dude, let's go to Mark
let's go
in the
to,
back. You guaranteed that they are going to make a move and not one of these classic Farhan.
You're putting words in my mouth. I actually never used the word guarantee. I said it's more likely than ever. And remember, 2 years ago, this is somebody who swung for Chris Bryant at the deadline. But I wonder how many people are aware. Farhan Zaidi right now is GMing for his life. Like the end of this year is absolutely imperative.
He's got 2 more years in his deal.
So what?
Well, he's getting paid.
The Los Angeles Lakers are paying 87 coaches right now. Do you think that big-time sports teams care if there's 2 years left on your deal?
You think Darvin Ham is out there crying over, making ends meet? He's probably loving it.
Yeah, but that's not my point. My point is that there is a desperation with the Giants organization. Sure, desperation sensation if you want.
Thank you.
That I don't know if people are aware of. And it's much more about attendance than anything else, which I don't know if you've noticed. The Giants are actually crushing it in terms of attendance right now. They are maybe but also one of the top risers year over year.
Right.
Maybe that's not fair because they were down last year. But the point is what they asked for from the front office. What ownership asked the front office to do, they did. You can argue with it, and I can totally sit here and hear you.
I'm not going to argue with it, and I don't think that's why I don't think that he's GMing for his career, his life.
He is if the attendance drops and they flop and they win 75 games.
Well, drop and a flop, sure. But right now, attendance is up, and they're a playoff team as we sit right here on June 12th.
Well, sure, which is completely irrelevant.
It's completely irrelevant, and I hate the format, and I wish I would have heard yesterday's handoff thingy, because apparently you and Steiny got into it over the addition of a third wild card.
I'm surprised he showed up today. It was an Ottoman game.
10-8 round?
No, it was 10-1.
You cuffed him around?
Yeah, but I mean, no, like at times we were discussing two different things.
That's how it goes sometimes with you two.
Well, no, Steiny was giving his opinion about something, but he was speaking as if it was fact for millions.
This guy is such a D.
It was that the NBA is a joke and that baseball is dying and that the wild card, the extra wild card, does absolutely nothing for anybody. It does nothing to drive interest in June. And I was like, there's just too many holes in what you're saying. Number one being that the standings don't drive any attendance in June. Nobody gets playoff fever in June. That's not when you get play. Nobody is like, we're in first. Let's go to the game. Nobody cares. The Dodgers fans knew they were going to be in first. Nobody is like, I think we might go to the playoffs. Like, it's June. We're not doing that yet. But what I kept challenging on him is give me something, a provable metric that suggests what you're saying is accurate. And that many, many people are being driven away from the sport because of playoff expansion. And when he said, you can't prove that it helps, I said, you're right, I can't prove it, but what I can do is give you some metrics. I can tell you that attendance around baseball is up. I can tell you that finances are up. I can tell you that inside the NBA is going away because a different network decided to spend multiple billions of dollars on regular season NBA games. And smart executives don't do that if they think something stinks and is going away. So that's my 1 minute summary of yesterday.
Okay.
And we don't need to go down that road again. But attendance for the Giants is up.
Yeah.
And I'd argue optimism is up. Even though a lot of you are not feeling it, you may still flick the Giants in 34 and 35, whatever. Sure, that's all fair. I don't think the Giants are amazeballs right now at all. What I'm telling you is I see a potential path to this being a very different year than the last 2 years. Objectively, their pitching staff, their starting rotation is very different than what it was the last 2 years. Now, some of them are on the shelf. But last year, you have two literal all-stars from last year, one of them being the Cy Young Award winner, are sitting in the weeds right now. And another former Cy Young Award winner is next to them in the weeds. And last year's, hey, this guy can pitch, is also sitting next to them in the weeds. They're all sitting there. I would actually argue that it's overly pessimistic to think that those four pitchers are not going to have some sort of an imprint on the second half of this baseball season.
I would say it's overly optimistic to put those labels on those players, especially Robbie Ray, a guy who is yet to pitch, and he's coming off of Tommy John. And yes, you can call him a former Cy Young Award winner because he is, but right now he is a surgery victim. He's a guy who is coming back off of surgery. And Blake Snell, he is also a former Cy Young Award winner who has been terrible when he's pitched, and when he hasn't pitched, it's because he got hurt. And he got hurt because he missed training camp, I would assume, or I would presume, rather. And so I don't know if he's ever going to get back to that Cy Young form this year. And Alex Cobb is a guy who's had, 3 or 4 setbacks in his return this year?
No, he's had one major setback.
Right. He
had surgery in the offseason, and then he had a major setback.
Right. And then he had the shoulder, and then he had the hip, and it seems like he's been unable to get himself enough to even come back. So I think to look at all three of those guys and think that all three are going to pop is overly optimistic.
I agree with you.
To say that 2 of them will pop, to me, is still too optimistic. To think that one of them might actually come back and perform like you would have expected him to, that feels a little bit more reasonable to me.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that any of them are going to pop. I'm just arguing that I think that there is a very reasonable scenario that those guys are going to have an effect on the second half of the season, and so far they've had none.
They've had a negative effect.
Well, Tristan Beck, add him in. All 4 of these starting pitchers have a sum total of 0 wins. I don't even think the Giants have won a game in which Blake Snell pitched, let alone has he gotten the win. Now, one of those was an unfortunate Camilo Doval disaster against the Yankees, but still, they've not won a game in which any of those guys have pitched. I'm going to bet that changes in the second half of the year.
You would figure.
But the larger point I was trying to make is if this team still sits where they are right now, a month from now, I would in a hefty way bet that Farhan swings big at the trade deadline, because if this thing goes south, he's definitely the one who would be in the crosshairs at the end of the year.
Agreed.
And so if he was ever going to get aggressive at the deadline, and sometimes he has and sometimes he has not, I would argue he is more likely to do that this year, because he more than anyone else really needs the Giants to have something cooking in September and October this year. Something cooking that makes people feel good about what's going on. And he's got obvious places where you're like, we could probably upgrade here. Now, I don't know if Brett Wisely's still going to be hitting 300 a month from now, and maybe they feel good about shortstop. And Wade is back, and they feel good about first base. Or just go get a bopper and replace Soler at DH. Yeah. Maybe you'll want to do that. I don't know, but I'm pretty confident that this lineup, come a month from now, could use another bat. And I'm pretty confident that as things sit here right now, Farhan would aggressively go chase that because he needs it more than anybody.
He does, and I agree with that. And you do have some prospects. You probably don't have the same haul of prospects you would like to get a real big bopper, but you've got some holes and you've got some spots that need filling for sure. And first base becomes a spot depending on Lamont Wade, and DH I think is definitely a spot. And I don't know what you're going to do at the middle of the infield depending on how your shortstops continue to perform, but yeah, you could use at least one more bat, and you could use probably two more starting pitchers, and you are waiting on two or if not three guys to come back. And I think you might actually need three starters, because I don't know if Jordan Hicks is going to be able to go 150 innings. It seems to me like that's a little bit of a leap for a guy who's never thrown more than 77 in his career. He's already at 71, and right now he is your number two starter. If you look at effectiveness in the rotation, Kyle Harrison would be your three. And
he's been good.
Yeah. And so how does that project out for the back half of the year? Usually that doesn't go great when a guy goes from 77 innings up to 150 or 160.
Right, but I'd also I'd argue with Jordan Hicks. You're right. I don't know how that's going to go. I do know that he trained the entire offseason with this in mind. He convinced the Giants that he could be a starter, and they bought. And it appears to be a brilliant 4-year signing for not a whole lot of money. I think he's making around $40 million or something over the life of the deal. So that so far looks like a very smart thing. The other thing I know is that Jordan Hicks, he throws 7 miles an hour less than he did when he was a reliever. So how does that sort of project out? I mean, those innings that he's done in the past, much higher leverage, much higher workhorse type innings, where he's throwing 100 miles an hour and now he's throwing 93. So how does that project out? I don't know. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a pitching coach, but I don't think that the Giants and Jordan Hicks are suddenly like surprised by this. This was the plan. And so I think they plan on Jordan Hicks being a starter for the rest of the way is plan A. And there's not a lot of evidence right now to suggest that won't work.
Right, but
I don't know.
Well, the evidence would be the history of guys who have their innings jump up dramatically. It tends to either lead to injury or ineffectiveness over the longer term.
But he's never pitched like this before. He's never pitched at 93. So it's almost like he's a brand new guy.
Well, he's also never pitched more than 77 2/3, which was his rookie year.
Right, but again, he's doing that at 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
Right,
now
but
it's 93.
More than just the arm and the elbow and the shoulder. It's the overall body and the fatigue of just being a pitcher at that level. So we'll see. I would love for him to go and be able to make 30 starts. Right now he's made 14 starts. He's tied for the league lead. He's been great. If he makes every turn, he'll start 33 times, and that would mean that not only is the investment great for the future, but for this year as well. And right now you look at your rotation and you've got 3 starters, and that has not been good enough. And you are number 2 in baseball in bullpen innings. And so I think about the future of this bullpen.
Yep.
And by and large, when you have a bullpen that works a lot early in the year, you get late in the year and these guys start to fatigue and they break down and they become less effective. So I wonder about the long-term viability of a pitching staff that last year was number 1 in baseball in bullpen innings. And I know a lot of that was because we like the opener. But this year, I mean, you've used openers.
You've had to.
You also have had a lot of starters only go 5 1/3 on the regular.
And part of that is baseball. But yeah, the injuries, I think, are the lead story there. Keaton Winn is back too. I don't know how that's going to go. That's been a little wobbly of late.
Yeah.
But I would just, again, if I'm a betting man, there's 8 starters in theory. 5 weeks from now, there's 8 starters. There's Harrison, there's Webb, there's Hicks, there's Wynn. Those are the 4 that are actually pitching right now. And then there's Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb, Blake Snell, Tristan Beck. There's 8 starters. You just need 5 of those guys to rock. If I'm a betting man, I need 5 out of 8 to rock and roll. And let's boogie. And if you get more than that, now you're bolstering your bullpen. Great. I don't think that's an unreasonable bet.
I think it's a little bit of a reach when you're looking at the various characters. You're asking,
okay.
I mean, Keaton Winn has been, let's just put the rat on the table, brought to you by Atco Pest Control. He's been bad since he came on this show. He got hurt. He was sick. He was terrible.
Right.
He got hurt.
Yeah.
He's come back, and he's been bad.
He wasn't terrible before he was good for a little while.
Well, he was awful when he got sick. He pitched sick, remember?
Yes,
and he got absolutely lit up by Philly, I think. I think that was
right.
Philly.
I think you're right.
And then you go to Blake Snell, who has been unable to stay healthy, and he can't pitch 5 innings, and he's been slightly better. It looked like he was starting to round into form, but he can't get healthy. And you got Robbie Ray, who's coming back off of Tommy John. You don't know how effective he'll be. it just feels like the more you run down this list, and Cobb was supposed to be ready by, end of April, mid-May, how about early June? And here we are mid-June, and he still isn't able to get back and pitch. I just feel like, yes, you have 8 starters, but right now it feels like of those 5 guys who aren't there, it feels like a lot of them aren't going to ever get there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Wynn was really good for his first 6 starts of the year. It was basically the entire month of April. He was 3-3 with a 3.18 ERA. He's had 4 starts since. They've all stunk. They've all completely stunk out loud. You're right. Against Philly, he didn't even get out of the first inning.
Yep.
Then there was that game in Colorado. He was cruising through 3 innings. Then remember, he never got an out. And about 7 straight absolute barrel balls
That's
went.
Right.
And he was out of the game. Then he faced the Dodgers.
7 hits on 11 pitches,
It was
right?
absurd. Yes, it happened so fast. He faced the Dodgers. He got torched. He faced the Rangers in his comeback game. He kind of got lit up there as well. 7 runs and into the 5th inning. I don't know if he's going to rebound or not, but again, I need 5. You just need 5.
I know.
You got 8. A month from now, you need 5.
Well, you've got 3.
You got 3.
And you have 8. You just need 2
So you need
of
2
the 5.
more. 2 more of the of the remaining 5.
Yeah.
A month from now.
It kind of reminds me of the National League wild card race, where even if you want to give the Braves the first spot, and I don't know if they're a sure thing anymore, but other than the Braves, you've got 8 teams for 2 spots. 8 teams fighting for 2. And it feels like the Giants should be one of them.
Should be. So should the Padres.
Padres, Giants, Pirates, D-backs, Cubs, Reds, Cardinals, and Nationals. They're separated by 2.5 games.
Padres and Giants.
It should be.
Those should be your guys.
But if you look at the Pirates are a half game behind the Giants, and then you've got 4 teams who are a game back, and then the Nationals suddenly are a game and a half back. I don't think that they're a real contender, but that's kind of what this Giants rotation conversation feels like to me. You got 8 guys for what, 2 spots? Or 5 guys for 2 spots?
I mean, look, it's baseball. It can play out any sort of a way. You can look at the current situation 2 ways, I think. You can look at the Giants and go, this team is blah mediocre. You are just blah mediocre. Or you could say, wow, everybody's hurt, and you're still right there. You're still actually, in this moment, one of the playoff teams.
Right.
You could do that either way. I wouldn't be mad at either way. Both of those are probably just determined by which side of the bed you woke up on.
Yeah.
That's all. It goes back and forth. Optimistic Ollie over here. I've got days where I'm like throwing stuff at the wall and yelling at the TV. They're just days. There are days where you look at the Giants and you're like, this is gross. I was annoyed last night.
Damn it, Farhan.
I was completely annoyed last night.
By what, a 3-hit effort?
Well, yeah. They don't.
One run on 3 hits?
Hit the ball. And Dubon is hitting the ball all over the damn yard.
Ooh, Dubon.
Right? And he's scoring on a ground ball to short that gets thrown by the first. It's frustrating. It's baseball, But I get both of those points. The Giants are not a very good team right now. I'm not sitting here saying that. What I'm saying is my optimism today is at a pretty high clip because I see a path for the Giants to be a good team in the second half of the year. I see that their starting rotation will be bolstered. We haven't even talked about young guys. Reggie Crawford is pitching amazing down in AAA. Who knows if he's going to have a hand in all of this? Who knows if Luis Matos is back? Maybe you found something in Ramos and Wisely. I don't know. But I also think an acquisition is incredibly likely. And the guy who was your best hitter for the first 2 months of the season is hurt. And you've won 5 of 7. And you've got some pretty manageable things on your schedule for the next 2.5 weeks, including the Rickwood game, which I think is going to be a ton of fun. So that's all. It's Wednesday. It's optimistic day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Best day of the week, right? Wednesday.
Not at all.
Giants have scored 3 or fewer runs 33 times
That's
this
too
year.
many.
33 of their checks notes, 69 games.
Yeah,
That's damn near half the games you've scored 3 or fewer. You're 8-25 in those games.
Yeah, they need to, breaking news, their offense needs to be better. Yeah.
Could you get 4 runs?
They're incredible when they do.
Right.
And the answer is no. Most of the time, no. Or half the time.
26-10 when they score 4 runs. 4 runs.
Yeah.
8-25 when they don't.
It's not asking a lot. Although, we have sat here and watched baseball in this ballpark for 25 years. And I would think with the Matt Cains and Tim Lincecums of the world, we've come to appreciate the 3-2 win. Like that's been a part of Giants baseball even when they were amazing. I always remind people they called it torture in 2010. And that's largely what they were talking about. It was two things. It was, dude, do you guys ever score runs? Do you ever blow out the opponent? No, you don't. It was almost like you either lose 6-1 or you try to grind out 2-1, 3-1, 3-2. And oh, by the way, when it is 3-2, somebody with a beard is going to come in and load the bases with nobody out in the ninth inning and then pitch out of it. It's torture. That's always been Giants baseball in this ballpark.
Of course.
They're never going to lead the league in runs.
No, but a 3-hit performance, like you said, last night was just
annoying.
Putrid.
It's super annoying.
And that happens far too often where the offense is just a non-factor.
I agree with you completely. Richie in Queens is on with Willard and Dibs. Hey, Richie, what are you doing?
Hey, guys, how are you?
What's up?
Oh, man, I thought your assessment is so right on. I was in New York, obviously, watching the game. I was frustrated last night, too, because I went to bed it was 3-1 in the seventh. I said, not going to win this game. You could just see the mode they were in. Guys, you mentioned the pitching. I think the pitching is going to be a major asset. I love our relief pitching at this point. I do. And the biggest surprise to me is Jelly. Jelly's been phenomenal. And then, obviously, Miller. And you got the kid Rodriguez. Walker is lights out. I think Walker could be a closer one day. The one guy that gets you nervous with is Duvall. And it was a good inning for him. I mean, what he does in the ninth inning, at least the pitch count, or the pitch clock is not beating him up. He's gotten that down pat. But their hitting is the issue, and you touched on it. I mean, Salah has cost him 3 or 4 games this year, where one little double, one rip to the seats could be a difference in winning 2 or 3 games. Salah, Conforto is another guy that frustrates me. I was happy to see Slater come off the slab today. But the hitting, you mentioned it, they're going to have to get a bopper. Maybe a kid like De La Hoya, right-handed bat from Miami. They're out of it. Somebody that's going to give them that consistent hitting because we have nobody. I mean, again, I love Wade, but is he our best hitter? Is he a 300 hitter? Give me a 270 hitter. So, look, they're going to fight all year. And you mentioned they got plenty of people assets with the pitching. I think these guys coming back, I don't think the pitching is going to be an issue at all. It's going to be their hitting.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you mean De La Cruz from Miami, not De La Hoya. He was a good boxer. I don't want him in the Giants lineup at all. But I agree with Richie. There needs to be a different bat, or Soler needs to play like he was supposed to play. Soler's a problem right now. Although we're sitting here saying this on a day where he reached base all 4 times. He went 2 for 2 with 2 walks. One of the hits was a complete fly ball that just found the right spot down the right field line.
It's base hit in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. So he went 2 for 2 with 2 walks. He scored a run. That's a good day. But by the same token, with runners on base, Soler needs to pump some balls into the stands here at some point.
Right, or at least drive a ball into the gap, and that's been his biggest issue is with runners in scoring position, and he was brought in not to draw walks and not to hit solo home runs in meaningless games.